Hi, my name is Lucy and this is my Flosstube channel, Stitch to My Lou. And I want to say thank you so much for clicking on this video and being here with me. So this is my 5th Flosstube video, but it's going to be my first kind of classic Flosstube stitching update. So if you've been here for previous videos, I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone who's taken the time to watch and comment and interact with my videos in any way. It really means a ton to me and I appreciate it so much. And if this is the first video you've seen of mine, thank you so much for clicking on it and following along. So like I said, this will be my first kind of classic Flosstube update. It's been a little over a month since I filmed my first video, which is longer than I was hoping to go, but I had some travel, which I'll talk about at the end. And I also tried to film this last week, and I tried to get crafty using my phone as a webcam, but loading it directly onto my computer, and I was unsuccessful. It resulted in super choppy and no audio. So I had to be sad about that for a couple days because I spent an hour filming and then couldn't use any of it. So I'm back, I'm ready. I'm hoping we will be successful today. And I have a lot to show you since it's been like 5 or 6 weeks since I last filmed. So with that, I want to start by giving a few shout outs. So first of all, I'm a big fan of Eli, whose channel is Thick Threads. He and I work on a lot of the same style of projects. He also has Stitch for Pride, but he chooses the most amazing fabrics, and his projects are just so much fun, and it's really cool to see how different projects can look when you choose different fabrics. So definitely recommend Eli. I also want to recommend Envis, who is Sleepy Goblin Crafts. I actually met Envis at the Spring Mingle hosted by Lindy Stitches earlier this year, and I had a really nice time chatting with them then, and then after that I started watching their Flosstube, and they're also working on Stitch for Pride. So if you want to see a bunch of different versions of Stitch for Pride, you can check out all these folks. And yeah, I really enjoy Envis's video. They just had a big finish of their Fox project, so I'm excited for their next Flosstube as well. The next one I want to shout out is Erin from 3 Cat Stitching. She is a new channel to me, but I have really loved getting to know her through her videos. She just has really amazing energy and really fun projects, so definitely recommend her. I also want to shout out Charlie from Stitching with Charlie. She's another Flosstuber who I just recently discovered, and she also has a really fun selection, and she's pretty new to stitching, so it's fun to see what kind of projects she chooses and follow her journey. And then last but not least is Elizabeth from Savory Sewing, who was actually recommended to me in one of my previous Flosstube videos in the comments. So thank you to the person who recommended her. I have really enjoyed getting to know her as well. And she posted a whip parade right around when I subscribed, so that was perfect timing. But yeah, this community is so amazing, and I always feel like I know about a lot of people, which I definitely do. And then I'm always pleasantly surprised when I discover more amazing people who have videos, and it's fun to kind of go back into the history and watch their whip parades and learn some lore. So definitely recommend those channels. And again, if you have other Flosstubers that you love, please let me know, because there's always room for more. So with that, I am going to jump into my stitching updates. So first of all, I have an FFO. Oh, the cat might join. I have an FFO. This is Data Portraits by Shaded Stitchery. I actually stitched this in April of 2024, but I just framed it a few weeks ago. I think I was extra motivated because Data Portraits Part 2 is coming next spring, and I'm really excited about that. So to channel some of that excitement, I decided to FFO my last year's project. So this is on Atomic Ranch Parchment 16 count Ada with the called for DMC conversion. I'll show that. And the way that I frame this, I call it the Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch method, because she posted a tutorial about how she frames her projects, and I pretty much followed that as closely as I could. So I cut a piece of mat board, and then I put batting on top of that, and then I put my piece on and pinned it centered. And then I used double-sided tape to tape the excess fabric onto the back. Then I wedged it into this frame. It's a little bit, it pops out a little bit just because between the mat board and, or like the foam core and the quilt batting, it's pretty thick, but I think it looks amazing and I'm excited to have it hanging. And also I'm excited for its companion piece come spring now that I have it displayed. So I'll put this back here so you can enjoy it for the rest of the video. All right, next up are my finishes. So my first finish was Carnival by Jan Hicks Creates. I started this project on March 18th and I finished it on July 31st, so just a couple days after I filmed my last video. I'll post a picture, I guess, of where I was last time, but I didn't have very much left, so I finished this pretty soon after. The way that I track my stitching, I don't use Pattern Keeper or anything like that, so I don't have the daily stitch counts or anything. But I do have a calendar where I keep track of what projects I work on what days. So I can tell you that I worked on this for 52 days in that time span. And I don't use Pattern Keeper or anything, so I don't count stitches, but since the stitch count was provided, this was 22,859 stitches. And my fabric is 20 count Blush Ada by Zweigart. And I just love it so much. I stitched it 1/1 with a called for DMC. And I'm so in love with it. I hope that I can get this one fully framed, or professionally framed, but I don't know exactly what color, but I love it and I want to have this displayed. And I'm going to try to remember to show you my backs, but here's my back for that one. This one was a beast, but it was so fun and it was a great summer project to work on. So, love that one. Hi, Quincy. This is Quincy, and he has to be involved in everything. Okay, we'll power on. My next finish is one that you have not seen yet, and it was Season of the Heart Shore S'mores by The Blue Flower. So this is part of her Seasons of the Heart series, but this was an exclusive to the Acorns and Threads Beach Retreat, which I went to this spring. And it came with all the called for flosses and the fabric, and I actually have finishing supplies for it too. We'll see if I ever get around to sewing a pillow. But yeah, this project was really fun. There are lots of little elements and it was fun stitching with a few variegated threads. So I stitched on this from August 3rd through the 16th, and I had 10 stitching days on it. And I don't have a stitch count for this one because it wasn't provided. And this is 16 count marbled khaki Ada by XJU Design, which is the called for. So I'll show it up close. My favorite is, I think this is an elk, and he's using his antler as a roasting stick. I just love that. I also really love the variegation in this mermaid tail. So love that, and I suspect it will be released publicly soon. So if you're a fan, do not fret. Quincy, what are you doing? Okay, my next finish is another big one. It is The Extraordinary Bird Sal by Lola Crow. And I can try to find a picture of where I was last time. This is my finish. I started this on April 11th and I finished it on September 4th. And I spent 51 stitching days on it in that time span. And the total stitch count is 18,980. So I think last time I had just finished the peacock, so there's been quite a lot of progress since I last showed it on here. I think my favorite bird is this macaw. It was really fun to have some pops of color, especially towards the end. In true Lola Crow fashion, this was an absolute beast, especially the last piece. This whole bird was the last exhibit, and it was a slog to get through to the end, but I absolutely love it and I think it looks amazing. I'll show you my back. My back here is full of really thick knots because a lot of the birds, especially their faces, I found they had several colors, and then they'd have an eye and a beak and then all the back stitching that comes with that. So let's see if I can find a particularly heinous spot. Well, here's the the final bird, his face. I don't know if you can see, it's thick, so I'll have to use some thick batting when I finally frame this, but I love it and I'm so proud to have it finished. Okay, I have one more finish, which is Botanical Bookmark by Studio Onistru. I don't know exactly how to pronounce her name. So this I got as part of the Spellbound Stitches bookmark book, which was a fundraiser for some different literacy organizations. I think that was last fall. So I've probably had this pattern about a year, but I stitched it from August 17th to September 11th. I actually finished this morning. Part of the problem, I ran out of this dark blue. I ran out of it. I lost thread chicken and I literally had 9 stitches left, but I had to wait a couple weeks to get to Michael's to finally restock that thread and finish it off. But it is done now. I worked on it for a total of 10 stitching days, and since it's full coverage, I calculated that there are 3,978 stitches in here, and I just stitched it on a scrap of 14 count white Aida. So another interesting thing about this pattern is, or about this project, I have done a little bit of full coverage, and for my Crater Lake full coverage that I did, I stitched it 1 page at a time, and I did my best to color complete by page, and then if it got too far I would just tie off and finish that color later. But I had heard about different methods like Royal Rose and parking and the typewriter method, but I never really understood kind of the logistics of it or the utility of it. But I discovered a new channel called Slow Stitch Yogi, and she streams like every single day. She does a lot of stitching, and I was watching one of her videos and she was parking, and for some reason that just made it click for me and I understood parking. So I wanted to try it for myself, so I actually tried that here. Something I've realized after I got started is that in order to park, you have to choose which quadrant of this stitch you're going to park in, which means you have to be consistent about what direction your stitches go. And if you watch my second half of my finished braid, you will have known my confession that I don't have all my stitches going the same way. But since I was doing the typewriter method with parking in this project, my stitches do go the same way. But I wanted to do a little bit of an experiment. I'm a statistician, so I love experiments. So I stitched half of it doing the parking method and the typewriter method, and then I stitched the other half in just regular Lucy fashion. I did cross-country color completing, and I alternated my X's. So I'll hold it up close. I don't know if you can tell the difference. I think, I mean, this part where they all go the same way definitely looks really nice. Like, I can admit that it looks pretty, but I don't think you can really tell even from up close. But where you can tell is the back. So I'm going to show that now. So now, since it's flipped around, this side is the typewriter method with parking and this side is cross country. And I think that's where the real difference is. So it's really thick, like it feels like a rug on the bottom of the parking side. But I think that was kind of a cool experiment, and I really love this design. I love how vibrant the colors are, and it was fun watching the flowers come to life in both methods, both the typewriter method and the coloring book method. So yeah, I'm excited about that one. At some point I will sew it up into a bookmark. So those were my finishes, and in addition, I had a couple of projects that were both started and finished in the last time period, but I also have one more start. And this project is Black Cat and Green Leaves by Box and Fox on Etsy. I bought this pattern a long time ago, but it just was sitting in my computer in my PDF folder, and now I am finally stitching on it. It just has a bunch of lovely shades of green, which is really fun. And I'm stitching it on 16 count Mystic Fabrics Everything Else. And I was really excited to find this fabric because this chart is actually charted in full coverage with a ton of stitches of this background color. And I just did not want to do that, so I was really excited to find this fabric, which matches the called for background color perfectly. And there's of course a black cat in this pattern, but since I have 2 black cats, I think I need to find a way to sneak in another one, like maybe up here, just some ears and a nose or something, just like they're peeking out from behind. So we'll see if I can come up with a solution for that. But I'm really enjoying this piece. It's a lot of block stitching, which is just kind of nice, zoning out, chilling stitching. And I'll show you my back. For me, this is what a nice back looks like with my stitch pattern. So it kind of makes squares when I stitch just one row at a time really nicely. So I think that looks cool. And now I have 2 whips that you saw last time that I have updates for. So first is my tail ends project. I'll try to find a picture of where it was last time. I started this project on January 8th and it's on white 14 count Aida. And the way that this works is if I'm stitching and I'm done with a color and I have less than 1 hand's length of thread left, I will just stitch it into here instead of sewing it back on, or instead of wrapping it back on to my skein. So I actually put quite a lot in with Extraordinary Birds since there are so many color changes. I ended up doing a lot of these, and same with the Botanical Bookmark. There were a lot of colors in there, so I was able to add quite a few, and I think it's looking fun. I'm almost halfway, so one day I'll be able to make this into a little bookmark. And then my final whip is Stitch for Pride. I'll show a picture of where it was last time, and here it is now. This is by D's 20 Stitches, and it's on 16 count resistance Aida by Mislaid Pages, which is the called for, and I'm stitching it with the suggested DMC alternatives. So I started this on January 15th, and since I last showed it, I've added 2 more monthly motifs. So first, this purple one was in honor of Saint Anastasia the Patrician. I loved that one. I think the shattering vase is so beautiful. And then the September individual was Lily Elby. Lily Elb. I can't remember exactly the pronunciation. It's been a little while since I watched the videos. But I loved stitching this chrysalis. It was really satisfying to find the stitching path, and I also just really enjoyed learning about Lily's story, and it made me want to read some books about her. I really appreciate the richness of the information that Dee provides, because I am always adding books to my want to read list. And here's the back. Again, with the monochrome, I'm able to be pretty neat. So this is what neat stitching looks like for me. It might be different than what neat stitching looks like for other people, but this is good for me. Okay, so those are my whips. Let's see, I'm gonna move them all over. And I want to talk about some of my plans. So first of all, if you are not watching Thistle and Thread, her name's Nicole. If you're not watching Nicole's videos, you should definitely go check her out. But she is hosting a really fun stitch along called the Season of the Witch Sal. And she's going to Salem this month and just sharing a bunch of witchy content to try and help us get into the witchy mood, which has definitely worked for me, honestly. I'm not a big seasonal stitcher, and I usually don't really look forward to fall, but this year I'm on board, especially her videos going through all of her, she did like a wish list of all these witchy fun patterns that she was looking at, and I really enjoyed getting to see those. So I'm ready for some autumnal stitching and excited to join in with her. So I haven't started it yet, but my next start is going to be Tonight I Fly, which is designed by the Stitch Crypt, and I found it in the Halloween 2025 edition of the Just Cross Stitch magazine. So I've heard about people talking about Libby and accessing cross stitch magazines on their Libby, but I just had never had the need to find patterns there before. I don't know, I never had looked that deep into it. But this week I was looking through, because I wanted to find a witchy pattern, and I was looking through the cross stitch, it's through the Halloween edition, and then I was looking through previous year's Halloween editions. and I went down the rabbit hole. So if you have not checked out Just Cross Stitch magazines on Libby, I recommend it because it's just a wealth of free patterns, essentially free patterns through the library. And there are just some amazing designs that I hadn't seen before, even from designers that I follow, that I just hadn't seen elsewhere. So highly recommend, although I will admit that it did give me a little bit of an existential crisis whenever I think about all the stitching I want to do in my lifetime. I sometimes get a little bit of a crisis where I'm like, there's not enough time. So warning, if you decide to go into the depths of the Just Cross Stitch archives, you may have an existential crisis like me, but you'll also find really cute patterns. So yes, I'll be stitching Tonight I Fly by the Stitch Crypt. It's just a cute little witchy pattern, and I had this scrap of Spellbound by Forbidden Fiber Co. that I think is gonna fit perfectly, and I like it when the name of the fabric matches the vibe of the pattern, so Spellbound seemed appropriate. And I wanted to show you how I kit up projects. So when I'm kind of gathering supplies and gathering fabric, I store my projects in these pencil cases, which I buy from Michael's. So I printed out the pattern from Libby. I have that in here. And then as I was gathering up the threads, I just put them in here. And before I put it on the Nerd Tube, I also had my fabric folded up in here. And then as I'm stitching, I'll keep my threads in here and just pull them out one by one as I use them. So I like that method. It works well for me. And just wanted to show that in case anybody else hadn't thought of that. Another thing with Libby, in order to print it out, I like to stitch from paper patterns instead of digital. So in order to print it out, I had to take a screenshot and then print out that screenshot. And it's a little bit grainy. Some of the symbols are a little bit hard to distinguish. So I'm curious if anybody else regularly downloads patterns from Libby, if you have any tips on how to keep them a little bit crisper. If there are symbols I'm confused about, I'll just go onto my computer and zoom in. But I would love if you have a solution for how to make them print nicer. I would love your tips. But yes, keep an eye out for that. I'm planning to start that on Monday. I'm going camping this weekend, and I think I'll get started on that Monday. So get hyped for some Halloween stitching from me. And then another project that I am working on kitting up and excited to start soon is Hats Off to Halloween by Lizzie Kate. This is the project I originally wanted to stitch for Nicole's Season of the Witch Sal, but I've had a little bit of trouble getting it kitted up. I just haven't had a chance to go to Acorns and Threads, and I really want to go and look at the colors because I don't know if you can see very well on here, but there's some really awesome variegation in those hats. So I really wanted to look at the colors and decide which ones I could substitute and which ones I needed to get the called for. So you can see back here I've got my conversion in progress. If the pattern's in a bag, I usually just store everything in the bag. But I've got a little note card here where I'm trying to decide if I want to do the called for or the DMC conversion or something else from my stash. So keep an eye out for that. It will be coming soon once I have the chance to finish kitting it up. But yes, I love this pattern and I think it's going to be so cute. I also, if you were more crafty than me, I feel like it'd be so cute to stitch each of them individually and make them into little like stuffed hats and make a little mobile, like a little dangly thing, or a little bunting with the different hats. I'm really excited to stitch those. And I have this fabric. This is Lunar by Bestitch Me that I think will work well with it once I get it kitted up. So watch this space. And another plan that I have been contemplating is my friend Krista and Krista is on Clover Hop Stitching on Instagram. She takes amazing photos of her stitching and she just works on awesome projects. So definitely check out her page. But we were talking about Orphan Black coming to Netflix. So Orphan Black is a TV show about a woman who realizes that she has clones. And it's just really interesting. It's pretty gory, I will say, so warning if you're sensitive to that, and like pretty intense. But it's a really amazing show, and I watched it a long time ago with my sister and was excited to see that it was newly coming to Netflix. I think it's on Netflix now. So Krista and I were talking about doing an Orphan Black sampler sal, and I do have my black butterfly sampler. I'll put a picture up that I started this summer, but I kind of like the idea of keeping that as a travel piece. So I'm thinking about starting a new project to stitch on while I watch Orphan Black. And I found a freebie pattern, I'll post it here, that I think is what I want to work on. It has some really interesting, I wouldn't say it's really weaving, but just some different backstitching and embroidery methods that I think would be really fun to try. I've enjoyed watching Colin from Stitchpocalypse. He has a weaving sampler, a mending sampler, and this is not on that level. I'm not drawing a comparison, but that was kind of inspiring, and then I thought it might be fun to try a little bit of a different style where it's a mix of cross stitch and this kind of, it's not really backstitch, it's kind of weaving, kind of embroidery technique. I'll show the picture, hopefully it makes sense. But yeah, I found that pattern, and I just need to, during my highly anticipated Acorns and Threads trip, I will need to find a great black thread for that. But I think that will be fun to work on because I'm excited to watch that show. And then other than that, I'm just gonna keep working on my Stitch for Pride, keep working on my black cat and green leaves. And I have a few other Halloween projects that I'm starting to get kitted up. So I'm ready for Halloween stitching. So I hope you're excited. So next up, I'm going to show you some haul. So I don't feel like I usually do a lot of cross stitch shopping, but it has been quite a while since my last video. So I do have some things. So first, I received my Needlework Marketplace pre-order from Starlight Stitchery, and I made a video showing you some of my favorite patterns from Needlework Marketplace, and I ended up purchasing 3 of them. So first one is Halloween Moon by Stitches by Ethel. I just think it's so cute, and you know I'm a sucker for a black cat, and I think it's gonna look great on this same lunar Ada. Again, I love when the color matches the theme. So I'm excited about that one and the little kitty. So I just need to get those variegated threads because I think this one, it's really worth it to, especially that moon color, really good payoff. And then I also bought Broken Wings Welcomed by Shaded Stitchery. I immediately fell in love with this pattern, and I'm so excited to have it and to stitch on it. I've been trying to kit it up, and it's charted in Cottage Garden threads, which are just pretty pricey, I think, because they come from Australia. So they're absolutely gorgeous, but I was planning on doing the DMC conversion. And then I realized that there's a really highly variegated thread. This, I don't know if you can, how well you can see it, but this kind of sunshine motif that surrounds the bird is all in one thread that's really highly variegated. So I think what I'm gonna do is try and track down that one thread and then use a DMC or an alternative variegated thread for the rest of them. But I also have a fabric for this, which I'll show in a second. So I'm really excited about this. I do feel like I need a little bit of a break from birds after finishing the Extraordinary Bird Sal, but I think I'll get to this one before too long. And speaking of birds, I also purchased Blueberry Jay by Jet X Stitch, which has got to be one of the best sellers of Marketplace. I will say the printing quality of this pattern is amazing. The colors are so vibrant, and then on the back, I haven't looked at the inside, but the back is like really nice big print, really nice quality. So this is my first Jet X Stitch, and I'm really excited about that. And then since Shaded Stitchery is the best, or sorry, since Starlight Stitchery is the best, Shaded Stitchery is also the best, I received a freebie with my order. So from Una Buena Pieza, I received the mini urban embroidery pattern. I'll just show that quickly. She has a lot of really great freebies, so I'm excited about that one. And then since I ordered from Shaded Stitchery, I also received their freebie, which is called Start Somewhere. And she has awesome freebies on her Ko-fi, so definitely check those out. And then another piece of haul is I went to Scrap PDX, and Scrap is a creative reuse store where artists can go and purchase reuse or like upcycled materials. They have a ton of variety. It's really fun to just go and dig around and look around. But if you're into collages or knitting or sewing or patchwork, it's a great place for crafters. And they have a really amazing cross-stitch pattern selection. So I've been there 3 times now, and every time I go, I just like sit in the corner and dig through all the cross-stitch patterns, and it's like a scavenger hunt. But this year I've been watching a lot of Stephanie's videos from Cross Stitch the Globe. She did a massive de-stash of vintage cross-stitch patterns, and it has opened my eyes to these patterns, because in the past I would, you know, skim through them and not be that interested in a lot of them, but now I was like, well, this one might be rare, this one might be, I don't know. It was fun. It gave me a new eyes through which to enjoy those vintage patterns. And I feel like if Stephanie went there, she would just have to buy everything. And it's really affordable. I think this was 25 cents. Like, I only bought one thing. I was very restrained this time, but they have amazing prices. It's very, very inexpensive to buy secondhand patterns there. So I bought this, which is Lighthouses of the West Coast by Virginia Creekman. And I thought I found when it was made, but I keep forgetting. It's copyright 1983, so that's pretty cool. There were a few lighthouses on the Oregon coast that I really love, and there are some that aren't actually on here, but a lot of really great lighthouses. I think if I stitched all these, it would get a little boring, but I'll pick a few. And yeah, I just think that's cool. And then next up, I placed an order with Vera's Stitching Corner. So Vera she has a really amazing floss tube. She has the best voice and just is really calming and really, I just love her videos. And she also has a dyeing business where she uses all natural colors to dye fabric and threads. And I have been admiring her project, her work for a long time. And with the tariffs coming, and also she said she was having some supply chain issues and might not be able to restock everything. So I decided to go for it and place my first order at Vera's Stitching Corner. So I bought 2 things of fabric. My first one is Yellow Onion, and this is a 16 count Aida, and it's amazing how vibrant it is. It's so beautiful. And actually, my lap's getting very full, but I think this is going to be perfect for Broken Wings Welcomed. I love that yellow. And then my other fabric that I bought is Wild Rose in 16 count Aida. So just a really nice soft pink. It's kind of orangey, but it's probably showing up more orangey than it actually is. So I'm really excited about that. And then I also bought a surprise mystery thread pack. So it just comes with a coordinating palette of 5 skeins of thread. And this is the one that I got. So again, these are all naturally sourced dyes, and I really love this palette. If this palette reminds you of anything or any patterns that you know of, please let me know if you have any ideas of what you think would look good stitched in this color palette, because they're so beautiful. I want to choose a pattern that really celebrates their awesome colors. And then I also received this skein as a freebie. It's Red Rubia. So if you are in Canada, I highly recommend Vera's shop, and hopefully we can get access to Canadian goods again soon. Okay, we're doing well, I think. So next I'm going to talk about some books. So I love reading. I try to read at least 2 books a month. That's what my Goodreads goal is. And so I have a few books to share with you, and I'll try to be brief, especially about the ones that I did not care as much for. So first was River Walking by Kathleen Dean Moore. This is a series of essays that are all centered around the theme of different bodies of water and different trips that the author has taken with her family that involved bodies of water. And I read this while I was at the coast, so it was very perfect. And this author is based in, or at least was based in Oregon when she was writing this, so a lot of the stories are about places that I've been. So I really enjoyed that. Next up, I read a book called Save the Date by Allison Raskin. I'll put up the cover. I don't have it anymore because I got it from the library. I really like Allison Raskin. She's former BuzzFeed, so if you recognize her name, it might be from that. And I follow her podcast and I read her other books, but this one is a romantic comedy about a woman who gets dumped by her fiance, and then in order to save face and to not lose her deposits, she decides to just find a new fiance before her wedding date. And first of all, that's not really my style of book. I mostly just read it because I was excited to support that author, but I did not honestly care for it. I think just the tropiness of it wasn't for me. But if you love to read romance and want a romantic comedy, maybe you will enjoy it more than I did. And then next up, I read The Greatest Polar Expedition of All Time. I bought this at a fundraiser sale for my library, so it's been on my shelf for a while. I was excited to read it. And this is about a scientific expedition in 2019 and 2020 where they went to the North Pole to study how climate change is affecting polar ice. And it was written by one of the head scientists who helped to coordinate the trip. So it was from his perspective, and it was interesting, first of all, just learning how the logistics of a major project like that work, and also the specific challenges that they had because of COVID. And it has really amazing photos in it. It has this little insert. I love when books have an insert of colorful photos. So really cool photos of some polar bears. So I really enjoyed that book. This is like my perfect book. This is my favorite genre, where it's just about an interesting story told in an interesting way, and there are pictures. And next up was Number Go Up by Zeke Fo. And this book is about cryptocurrency and kind of the stories behind the cryptocurrency world. And I'm not a crypto bro, but I think it's good to be educated about things that are in the news. So I really enjoyed kind of getting an explanation of it, and also just getting to hear some stories of what was happening behind the scenes. And some of it was really hilarious, actually. There were some really funny stories. And then it also just provided more context for stories that I've seen in the news, but didn't really know the extent of the details behind them. So if you're crypto curious, highly recommend. It did not make me want to buy crypto, but it made me feel like I understood crypto. So, and then my most recent finish is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. I added this to my list because Michelle Bendy-Stitchy mentioned it, and I'm so glad I did. Like I said, I'm usually a nonfiction girly, but I'm trying to get more into science fiction because I think that could be a good way for me to dip my toes into fiction. And I loved this. I loved the writing. I loved the different characters. It's about a futuristic world in which an Arctic plague becomes unfrozen. Like global warming causes this Arctic plague to come back to life that's been frozen. And so it was a really interesting premise and just really interesting storytelling, and lots of each chapter is from the point of view of a different character. So I really enjoyed getting to read that, and I appreciate Michelle's recommendation. So if you have other science fiction recommendations, hit me up because I'm sci-fi curious. And those are all my books. I had a really good reading month in August, so excited about that. And then I'm pretty much done, but I'll give a little bit of a what I've been up to update. So this end of summer time period, I feel like is always really busy for everyone, and especially me. I usually have a kind of a slower start to the summer, and then at the end of summer, everything's trying to get packed in. So I've been playing a ton of disc golf. Since my last video, I've played 2 tournaments, and then I just go to a lot of meetups and events and more casual leagues. But I did win one of my tournaments, so I'll show that. I play in FA4, which is like the lower division, and this is the biggest group of FA4 I've ever played, and there were 4 of us, and I managed to win, so that was pretty exciting. And then I played another tournament back in Corvallis where I used to live, so that was really fun. And I've also been doing some camping. I got to go to Crater Lake, which if you've seen my finish parades, you know that's one of my favorite places in the whole world. So I was really excited to get to go there. And then this weekend I'm going camping again. So it's just been busy. I've had stuff going on all the weekends, which is also part of why it has taken me so long to film this video. But looking forward, I feel like the summer is winding down. I have a disc golf tournament in a couple of weeks. That's like the season finale for the summer. So that will be fun. Like I said, I'm going camping this weekend. And then, yeah, I think the summer is just gonna be winding down. So I'm kind of looking forward. Like I said, I'm not usually that excited about fall, but this year I am ready. So I'm really excited to make some soups, get cozy, maybe do a little bit of fall decorating, carve a pumpkin. I'm really excited for the new Taylor Swift album. If you're a fellow Swiftie, it's been a great month for us Swifties, and so I'm excited for that. I'm gonna have a little listening party with one of my friends, and yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to say. So thank you so much if you watched my video, and I hope that you'll leave a comment. Let me know what you're working on, what you're reading, and how you feel about the end of summer, beginning of fall transition. I feel like I said, I usually have a little bit of dread when it comes to that seasonal transition, but this year I'm ready to go. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.